Hi, I'm Kathy with Oakland Center on Aging, and this month for healthy cooking, we're going to focus on venison. We know that there's a lot of deer hunters out there in the state of Arkansas, and I have asked my son Cameron to come show us how to cook a backstrap from one of his deer that will melt in our mouth, and it's also healthy for you. So without further ado, we're going to let Cameron get started.
Okay. Hey everyone. I know traditionally you see a lot of people that take deer and they're going to fry it, right? And the reason they do that is it takes a lot of the gamey taste out of it. So what I want to show you today is it's a little healthier, and it'll still take a lot of that gamey taste out of deer. So the first thing you'll want to do is, if you do harvest a deer or somebody gives you a backstrap off of a deer, make sure you take that silver skin off of it. And so if you look at the top of the loin, there's going to be a real thin strip of silver skin. That, if you keep that on there, it's going to be really tough. It's going to be chewy. You're not going to get the flavor you want, so take a little bit of extra time, take that off of there, okay? So the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to marinate it. So for me, I like to do it for at least 24 hours, 48 hours if I have the time to. And I try to do it in stuff that's a little high acidic, so it'll break the meat down a little more. So what I do is I'll do a 50-50 of Worcestershire and soy sauce, and that it just depends on how big your meat is. So however much you need to fill up a bag, you just want to do 50-50 on that. And then a couple of teaspoons of minced garlic to go with it. Tablespoons. I'm sorry, not teaspoons. And then a couple of tablespoons of brown sugar, and whatever seasoning of your choice that you like. So any kind of McCormick's or anything like that. And you're gonna mix all that up real good, put it in a Ziploc bag, and let it sit in a refrigerator for, I would say, 48 hours. If you can do it, 24 hours is fine. And just like any other steak, if you can, you wanna try to bring it to room temperature before you cook it. If you can't, that's okay. But keep in mind too, this recipe and this process is good for any kind of meat, okay? So if you're like me on a budget and you have to get a lower grade beef that's a little cheaper at the store, this process works really well because it's gonna break that down too, and you can cook it the same way. So what we're gonna do, again, instead of frying it, we're gonna start it in a skillet, a cast iron skillet. And what you wanna do is you wanna sear it all around for a couple of minutes, okay? So we wanna get that cast iron skillet really hot. And the reason you sear it is you're gonna lock in all those juices and flavors that have been marinating for the last 48 hours. So when you go in and you try to cook something really fast, you lose all of that flavor. It comes off of that meat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get that skillet really, really hot, and we're gonna put some butter in there, let it sear on each side of it, and then we're just gonna finish it in the oven, okay? One thing I do recommend is, if you're doing this, get a digital meat thermometer. This is gonna take all the guessing out of it. So when you're doing wild game, you don't wanna overcook it, because if you do, it is gonna be very chewy, it's gonna be tough, okay? So let me turn this down just a hair before we'll get some butter in there in just a second. So the way I like to do it is, after I sear it, put it in the oven. Once the internal temperature of the thickest part of that loin reaches about 125, 126, we're gonna take it out and let it finish cooking out of the oven. And that should get you up to about 135, 136, which will be medium rare. And that'll give you a nice, good, tender bite. If you start going to well done on this, you're not gonna enjoy it, okay? So at most, I would do medium, which would be about the 140 range. So we'll get the skillet going here. You can see, get a knife going here. And again, this is kind of probably more butter than you need. But I mean, honestly, you can't have too much butter. Nobody's going to complain about that. And one tip I will give you, when it's done cooking and you pull it out of the oven, and it's resting and it's finishing cooking on its own, I'd get you a little spoon or a ladle or something and just kind of drizzle all the juices that are. So we'll get this skillet going, we'll get it real hot, we'll get this butter down here. One thing I will tell you, when you take it out of the oven, get you a little basting brush, and all the juices that are left over in this pan, just start basting the outside of the meat with it and let it soak in, okay? And then also, if you want to, you can take a couple of cups of butter and put it on top of that meat and just let it melt on top of that meat. So we'll let this heat up, and then we'll sear it. And also, when you're searing, so a trick to searing any kind of meat, if you're pulling on it and it's sticking to the pan, it's not done, okay? So when you're searing something, it should come off pretty easy without tearing or anything. That's when you know when it's done, and you can flip it on the other side, okay? So, just all one piece. So this should be hot enough now. And this is kind of a big piece, and if you have to cut it to sear it, that's okay. But when you lay it down like that, you want to hear that sizzle right there, okay? So we'll let that sit for a couple of minutes. And we got one little piece left here. That's a good sign. If it's not making that noise, then you didn't let your pan warm up long enough, okay? So you let that sear right there. And remember, when you get done with this, we're not going to take it out of the pan. We're just going to move the pan right into the oven and let it continue to cook in all these juices and stuff. But if you get a pan real hot, it does not take long to sear all of this. And one thing I do like doing, we'll do a little asparagus as a side tonight. But one thing I do like doing is, I like to use, kind of like the marinade, we like to use what we have in the house and what we keep on the house regularly. If you have onions and mushrooms and things like that, what you can do is just saute it in a pan and with a little bit more butter. And if you have any red wine, just put a little bit of red wine in there with it. And that's a really good topping for the steaks if you want to do that. And if you don't, we also do like a béarnaise sauce, and we've got one going right here. And this is really good if you don't have any veggies or anything. This is really good to do. It gives it a really good flavor, and again, it knocks some of that gamey taste out of it. One thing you can use, and one thing we like to use, is just this little packet. It's cheap, low carb, and it's got a really good flavor to it. It's really easy to prepare. So that's one thing too you can keep in your pantry, and you can use it on chicken or pork or any other steak that you decide to buy. So now it should be. Sorry, this isn't my kitchen, so I'm figuring out where everything is. Here we go. So, this is seared, and if you want to look right here, that's what we're looking for right there. You see that char right there? That's what's going to hold in all that flavor, right? And see how it came up really easy? It didn't stick to the pan or do anything like that. So all those little char marks, that's what you're looking for right there. So what we'll do is we'll let that sear for a couple of more minutes, and then we'll take our thermometer, and what you want to do is you want to stick it in the thickest part of that meat. So we're going to keep an eye on it, and once that sucker hits about 125, 126, that's when I take it out. Now, you can cook it however long you want to, but again, with wild game, the longer you cook it, the tougher it's going to be. It's going to be real chewy. So we always cook it medium rare at our house. So
can I ask you a question, Cameron? Like, that's not you can't put that in the oven. Would you suggest that they get one that they can keep in put in
So-
the oven and keep in the.
So what I have, there's some things you can buy. There are some that you can put in the oven. You can put them in the oven. They're oven safe. There are also some that are Bluetooth, and that connects to your phone. That makes it real easy. The one I use actually has, it's a digital one. It has a cable that runs into the oven, but the thermometer stays outside the oven. So those are available. I think I bought mine on Amazon for 15 or 20 bucks, and we use it all the time because, again, it takes all of the guessing out of it, especially if you're the type that likes a medium rare or a rare cut on your meat. It prevents you from ever overcooking it. So let's check this side and see what we're looking like. All right, so that's seared really good. So now what we want to do is, again, I'm going to take just a little bit of butter. So I'm going to take a little bit more butter and just cut it. Well, this is frozen, so normally what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of butter. Here we go. And we'll just add it to the top of the steak here before we put it in the oven. And just kind of let that melt in while it's baking in there. And it'll go all in that pan. And you'll have some really good, nice juices left over. And now, we got our oven that was preheated to 350. And we're just gonna set this in there and let it finish cooking. And when that comes out, we'll just put a little salt on it, a little pepper on it, any other seasoning you want, and we'll let it rest for at least 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll start cutting it. It'll be done.
Okay, well, we're going to take a short break and make another video after it comes out.
Okay, we're back, and the venison is up to 126.
So we'll go ahead and take it out because it will continue to cook on its own. So it's sitting at 127 right now, and you can see I put it kind of in that thickest part of the loin back there. And while it's sitting here resting and cooking, just take your little basting brush and just coat all those juices from that pan and get it all over it. And I would do it as long as you can, as long as your arm can stand it, because all that flavor will just soak in there, and you'll get all that minced garlic and everything that kind of fell to the bottom to the pan while it was searing back onto the steak. So you do that, and you can take a little bit of seasoning. I just do salt and pepper. I don't do anything super fancy. And you just get you a little pinch. It doesn't have to be a whole bunch. It's already gonna have a lot of flavor to it. Just a little pinch of salt. And then we'll do a little bit of pepper. And if you got kids, you don't want to do too much pepper because it'll be a little too spicy.
Or
for 'em.
grandkids. Grandkids?
So that's it. And you can see on the thermometer, we pulled it out at 126, and look how high that temperature's getting already. So it's gonna keep cooking on its own.
And I will say it's only been 1 minute and 45 seconds since you
Yep.
pulled it out.
It does not take long at all. So again, just keep keep brushing this, cover it all up, and that way whoever you're serving will get all this juice with it. And this is the really good part. So, and again, we're doing a béarnaise sauce with it, so we'll cut it up into little medallions after it is done resting. And then also, just real easy, we got some iceberg lettuce with a yellow pepper, and then some roasted chickpeas to go on top of it, and whatever dressing you want to use. And then in the oven, we already had it preheated to 350. We've got some asparagus in there with some olive oil and just a little bit of salt and pepper, and that's super easy to do too. Healthy, it's not expensive to do, and it's just a good addition with your meal. So we're gonna let this rest a few more minutes, and then we'll cut into it and start serving it.
And we will post the chickpea recipe for you on the website and on our Facebook page, so that if you want to roast those chickpeas, you can. And we'll be back in just a minute after it's all through cooking and show you how it turned out.
Okay, so here's your finished product. You can see we've got a little bit of salad, a little bit of asparagus, and you see the little bit of pink in here. That's exactly what you want. It'll keep it real tender. It's not going to be a chewy bite. This cast iron skillet method is nothing that I invented. People have been using this for years and years, and that my family and I have just found that it works really well on venison. We eat a lot of venison throughout the year. It's healthy, it's organic, it's very budget friendly. So hopefully you guys can use this and enjoy it with your family like I do. So good luck.
Cameron, thank you so much for doing this for Oakland Center on Aging. We look forward to maybe doing some more later in the year.
Absolutely.